Gentrification. Such a controversial word. The term can bring out lots of emotions. Gentrification is the process of renovating and improving a part of town so that it conforms to middle-class taste. So basically tearing down low-income homes and building newer ones. The process is controversial because sometimes poor people are displaced. Fixing deteriorating areas is seen as a good thing though because, well, for one, it looks nicer, and higher rents and mortgages means a bigger tax base for the city, which means more citywide improvements. And of course, business follows, as do better schools, and on and on. Big parts of our largest cities have been deteriorating for decades, and improving large areas not only makes things look nicer, it has a secondary effect of drastically reducing crime. I'm going to run some data and read a bunch of reports on which cities are the most gentrified. We'll take into account how many gentrified tracts each large city has completed and divide that by the city's total size. So basically, what percent of our biggest cities are seeing the most modern improvements? So grab your hard hats. I don't have one myself, but we're still gonna go see which American cities have been gentrified the most. Gentrified, oh gentrified. Where did all my old stuff go? I can't live here 'cause I'm poor. Our first most gentrified city is Minneapolis. What's interesting about Minneapolis is, well, this is the city where all the rioting started back in May of 2020, which kicked off rioting all over the country. Low-income residents in Minneapolis feel everyone's against them, the police, developers, and the politicians. Gentrifying neighborhoods here has made minorities upset, and the riots which happened were a result of poorer folks feeling overlooked. Anyways, 20 neighborhoods out of a possible 115 total neighborhoods here have improved over the last 10 years, and in those gentrified neighborhoods, home prices have gone up by 31%. A lot of residents have complained that smaller businesses in Minneapolis have been forced to shut down as rent prices shot up. A small restaurant called Marla's Caribbean Cuisine shut down last year, and a lot of people were upset by that. The Powderhorn neighborhood where Marla's was has transformed. One person said, "I don't know what it's going to be like. You can't even find a decent place to live anymore." Phoenix is the fastest growing big city in America right now, and the growth is going up as I speak. The city of Phoenix has been working hard to improve its city to appeal to the eager, younger working professionals who want to move to Arizona. 18% of Phoenix's 162 eligible tracts or neighborhoods have been gentrified. That's the 9th highest rate in the nation. Homes in one neighborhood, called Encanto Village in central Phoenix, have doubled in price in the last 5 years alone. Many business owners and community groups in Phoenix have banded together to try to fend off new developments. They want to keep their neighborhoods accessible, funky, and artistic. Good for them. So we talked about how gentrification hurt small businesses in Minneapolis. How has improving neighborhoods helped Phoenix? There's many ways gentrification helps cities. It's actually a fact that gentrification does actually raise income levels for all residents, not just the new ones. In fact, studies have shown that the demographic group that sees the biggest income gain during gentrification are blacks with high school diplomas. I'm sure there's a lot of black Americans in Phoenix with high school diplomas who are benefiting from their neighborhoods improving, right? Now, I saw our nation's 8th most gentrified city up close and personal. I had driven to DC looking to record bad areas for a video not too long ago, but a lot of the former bad areas were totally transformed. It was much safer, nicer looking, and just generally more cheerful since the last time I passed through these areas. This is H Street. A traditionally black neighborhood during the 1900s, it was burned and looted and left for blighted for decades. Here's what it looked like then. Drugs on every corner, shootings, the worst of it. But you can see how gentrification has really helped revitalize this street, this neighborhood, and this whole city. It's now booming again with hundreds of new businesses, a new trolley car system, and lots of modern condos and office buildings. In DC, 18.1% of all available neighborhood tracts have been gentrified. This map shows how much of DC's been gentrified. Now, everywhere I drove were former housing projects that previously had all the bad things that come with housing projects. It's cleaned up a lot, and many former residents who didn't want to live here or who couldn't afford the new prices moved away into areas like Baltimore. Of course, New York's on here. When mostly white, college-educated people left this place in the 50s and 60s, most of Times Square, Harlem, the Lower East Side, and Brooklyn were rough. Today, many of these once gritty neighborhoods are home to some of the most desirable, fashionable, and valuable pieces of real estate in New York. 20% of New York City has been gentrified. New York has seen more total gentrified tracts than any other place in the country. The rundown corner bodegas have been replaced by an organic market. Pawn shops and dive bars are now yoga studios and coffee houses. But this was up until the recent rioting and looting and health crisis. Now these gentrified neighborhoods might just reverse course and go back to poorer, blighted neighborhoods again, as hardworking business owners and professionals are fleeing this city in droves, people. Austin, Texas sure has changed a lot. Newcomers from all over the western U.S. have flocked here to take advantage of a city that's exploding and to enjoy all the new shopping and dining destinations. 20.5% of Austin has gentrified in the past decade. And according to the headlines, Austin's low-income residents are being threatened. This article made all the same arguments we've seen before, but along the way, I discovered another angle to this. Apparently, there's a thing akin to reverse gentrification. In 2015, then President Obama and Joe Biden teamed up for a regulation that abolished single-family zoning, which meant cities were encouraged to build high-density, low-income housing in residential suburbs, or more aptly, strong-armed to do so. Basically, Obama threatened to take away funding unless municipalities changed their zoning laws to allow for housing for poorer minorities. This was actually all over the news back then. One example is in Westchester County, New York, where HUD pressured the county to build 11,000 low-income, high-density apartments. Minneapolis also changed their zoning laws to allow this, as did the whole state of Oregon. Nancy Pelosi's pushing for this in California as well. So it goes both ways. High-density, cheap, multi-unit housing in the suburbs is okay, but it's called gentrification when wealthy white people want to move into the inner cities? How do you feel about that? Let us know in the comments below. Surprisingly, to me, New Orleans has seen the 5th most gentrified areas per square mile in the nation over the last decade. 20.8% of this southern city has been improved, at least structurally, and much of that's because of Hurricane Katrina. Investors jumped at the opportunity to tear down and rebuild large areas of rundown neighborhoods that were either abandoned or too far damaged to save. One example is the Bywater neighborhood. Here's this neighborhood then and now. Then it was mostly black retired folks. Now it's mostly hipsters. The new influx of white, Asian, and Hispanic residents has changed New Orleans forever. There are now 100,000 less blacks in this city, which has changed the culture. Crime has also gone down significantly. Look here, this was when Katrina hit. The blank year, apparently when they didn't keep records. But you can see before Katrina, crime was pretty bad. And then after Katrina, when gentrification started, crime got a lot lower. Everyone's moving to Florida, and Miami has seen a huge change. There are large parts of Miami's north side which are some of the worst ghettos in the south, but that's slowly changing. In fact, 21% of Miami has been gentrified. Miami's oldest neighborhood, Coconut Grove, was gentrified. However, developers here offered incentives for tenants to stay in the refurbished units. So gentrification isn't always pushing people out. The Miami Herald wrote an op-ed which explained why many of Miami's worst neighborhoods, places like Little Haiti and Miami Gardens, were suffering because people had moved out into the suburbs and crime had increased. The resulting loss of 20,000 jobs has had a profound impact on Miami's local economy. Many of the hardworking immigrants in the area had saved their money and they left themselves. But many people stayed, and these places were terrible places to live. So gentrification was needed to revitalize Miami. The alternative, a community like Wilkes-Barre, PA, which has not experienced gentrification, and as a result, 1 in 5 people lives in poverty and drugs are rampant. Here in Boston, 21.3% of all available neighborhoods have been gentrified, which is the 3rd highest rate in the nation. Now, one common argument that people make is that gentrification drives people out of their neighborhoods. But one study pointed out that neighborhoods are transient by nature anyways, especially low-income neighborhoods, where 70 to 80% of people move within a decade. And when a neighborhood is gentrified, the likelihood that original residents move only increases slightly, by about 5%. Denver's seen the second most gentrification of all U.S. cities, where a whopping 28% of tracts have been upgraded and modernized, mostly in the city's northeast and western areas. Denver's really tried hard to keep up with all the demand. It's one of the fastest growing metro areas in the nation. Part of Denver's rush to gentrify came after the Great Recession in 2008. Denver saw a huge number of mortgage defaults, meaning people left their homes, and banks took them over and sold them at a huge discount to developers. What's ironic about Denver is, as all the new people have arrived and home prices have skyrocketed, all the new people are complaining about all the urban growth. And now we come to one of our most controversial cities, San Francisco. This city has by far changed the most, and it's not even close. Nearly a third of eligible tracts in this once proud city have gentrified. The problem in San Francisco isn't necessarily the poor people being displaced, it's the successful people being displaced. It's growing so fast here, and neighborhoods have changed so dramatically that even working class people are fleeing. Look at this chart. Home prices, and rent by nature, have shot through the roof. The median home price here is now $1.4 million. What the? But that's changing now. Due to people fleeing either because of crime or health scares or the actual cost of living, they're moving across the bay or to less expensive cities where you can actually park your car and not be haggled for money. But they can't get moving trucks fast enough, and the worst part of it is, for them, they can't sell their homes. Nobody wants to buy them now. So this is a unique case where gentrification actually drove the rich people out of a city, not just some of its poor. Okay, well that's it. Our most gentrified cities. I think I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. There are clearly pros and cons to changing neighborhoods, but most of the data and research I saw showed that there were more advantages than disadvantages. Now, this wasn't one of my normal lighthearted videos, but I felt like it was an important topic to talk about. So the next time somebody's talking about gentrification, you'll be a little bit more informed. And in case you're planning to move to one of these cities, well, now you know what you're getting yourself into. The end. Gentrified, oh gentrified. Where did all my old stuff go? I can't live here 'cause I'm poor. All those buildings are so grown. Gentrified, oh gentrified. I like the place the way it was, with the crime and all the fuss. Quit changing the hoods for us, please. Gentrified. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great! You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. While we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the US a better place in a positive way.